Hey there. Welcome to the 지구 끝에 온실 book club check-in number 1. So this check-in is going to be covering the prologue and chapter 1 called 모습하나. I've broken this check-in into 3 different parts. So first, I'll be doing a summary of what we've read so far. The second one will be talking about some vocabulary and concepts that I thought were interesting from the story or things that I saw people talking about in the Discord server, etc. And the third part of the video is going to be just any random thoughts I may have about the book so far. I'm hoping this can start some discussion about the book in the various places that we're talking about it. And in the next check-in, we can review some of that discussion. Okay, let's start with the summary. First, the prologue. 2 sisters, Amara and Naomi, are waiting at the bottom of a steep hill outside of what used to be a national park. They traded their hovercar for the coordinates of this dead jungle. We learn that the girls are originally from Irgachefe or Irgachepe, a place in Ethiopia. As they argue about whether or not their hovercar could have made this any easier, Naomi checks the soil. She realizes it's totally dry. It hasn't rained in this jungle for a long time. As the dust has proliferated, the climate has become a mess. They're unable to predict the wind, the clouds, any weather at all. The southern part of the Malaysian peninsula, where they appear to be, has been in a drought for the last few months, and this rich jungle rainforest has completely dried up. Naomi asks Amara, "Do you really think this place exists?" We still don't know what this place is, but Amara seems confident that it does. They receive the coordinates from the 내성종. 내성 here means resistant or resistance, and 종 means type. So it's safe to assume these are people who have some sort of resistance to whatever's causing this natural disaster. They were given a picture of a lit-up village deep in the jungle, with living plants and people. This blurry aerial photo seems to be enough for Amara, but Naomi has her doubts. Among these 내성종, who have been kicked out of society, there's a rumor that 2 hours drive northwest from Kuala Lumpur out into the jungle, you can find a hideout, this oasis of life. It's not underground or hidden under a dome. It's a place with wind and rain, 내성종, resistance, as we might call them, and regular people. Amara has been looking for this place for a while, asking all of the 내성종 she can find about where it is. Naomi is unsure. What she is sure of, though, is that the reason her sister wants to find it so badly is that, unlike Naomi, Amara is vulnerable to the dust. That's right, Naomi is a 내성종. They trek deeper into the forest and come across a dead orangutan. It hasn't begun decomposing because there aren't enough microbes or bugs to complete the process. Only the points that are in contact with the dirt have started to decompose, so maybe there were some bugs or something that were surviving underneath there. Otherwise, the animal was completely preserved. Around it, the jungle is also completely dried up and dead. In the orangutan's back paw, though, Naomi notices something strange. There seems to be a growing vine in its grasp. The vine looks like it started growing after the animal died. She then notices the dirt is damp here, unlike the dry entrance. Suddenly, fog begins to gather. The girls get nervous and wonder if it's dust fog or not. Amara is able to feel the dust gathering because, like we said, she doesn't have any resistance to it. If red fog begins to gather, one can know that the dust is coming. As they continue into the jungle, trying to get away from the fog, they find more and more corpses of large animals, large rafflesia flowers, surrounded by dead bugs. What they also find, as they go deeper and deeper, are vines wrapped around the dead plants, living vines. As the sun goes down, Naomi starts to see what looks like a glowing blue light coming from the plants. As the sun gets lower and lower in the sky, Naomi loses her nerve and tells Amara they should go back, leave. There is no oasis, no refuge, no safe zone. The 내성종 lied to them. They have no food, they don't have enough water, and night is coming quickly. The fog starts turning red. Naomi screams that they have to run now. Humans cannot survive this dust. She doesn't want to see her sister vomit blood and die right there in the jungle. Amara refuses and tells Naomi she can't run forever. The dust will find her eventually. She needs to at least try to find this place. In order to survive the dust, she covers Amara with a rubber device to help her breathe. While she waits for the dust to pass, Naomi sees a light in the distance. She wonders, is that the village? They decide now is the best time to go, so they head off in that direction. After walking for a while, they see some shadows between the trees. People. They found the refuge. But these people emerge from the shadows with weapons trained on them. Amara shouts out that they are also 내성종. We got the coordinates and came here to find you. She's interrupted by a large woman who raises her hand in the air as if to say, shut up. A moment later, Naomi and Amara are attacked, held on the ground and detained. As they pass out, they feel death approaching them as they're pressed into the dirt. Chapter 1, Mosubana, focuses on a new character, Ayong. The opening scene takes place at a dust ecology research center, where the lowest ranking member of the team, Subin, has brought in some raspberries for everyone to try. This scene gives some background on the economy and culture of this society. They're trying to recreate fruits from before this mass extinction event, and not often succeeding. We're then introduced to a few of Ayung's co-workers, the most significant being Yoonjae. Ayung refers to Yoonjae as her onni. She talks down to Ayung a lot, but they seem to have a more or less friendly relationship. News flashes across their hologram screens that in a city called Haewol in Gangwon-do, reports are flooding in that some sort of vine is taking over the ruins of the city. Ayung wonders if this will be the topic of their upcoming meeting with the Korean Forestry Service. The next day, when Ayung comes to work, she finds samples from the Forestry Service on her desk. Some plant called Hedera trifidus, collected on March 2nd, 2129 in Haewol, with a request for full analysis. Ayung comes to learn that this is a sample of the plant that's taking over Haewol, called Mosubana. As Ayung opens the box to look at the plants, Yoonjae warns her to put gloves on. She pulls her sleeve up to show her own injury from letting the plant contact her skin. As Ayung gets to work, she watches a news interview her boss, Kang Yi-hyun, did regarding the plant. Her boss mentions that this could be an act of bioterrorism. Ayung and Yoonjae discuss this idea. Before Ayung goes to sleep, she follows her usual routine of browsing a website called Stranger Tales, where people upload ghost stories and conspiracy theories for discussion. After reading a few stories, curiosity gets the best of her, and she searches Mosubana. She's surprised to find a post called 악마의 식물이 내 정원에 자라고 있는데 이거 혹시 멸망의 징조 아니야? A demonic plant is growing in my garden. Is this a sign of the apocalypse? Ayung then begins researching the plant. She learns about how rapidly it propagates and proliferates, its toxicity and resilience. All parts of this plant are dangerous to humans. She feels like its nickname as a demonic plant or the devil's plant is a bit of an overstatement. It's just a vine. Ayung has a vivid dream that night. On top of a hill, covered in crimson red Mosubana, is a person sitting in a chair. She wants to approach this person, but she suddenly feels an intense, stinging pain from the Mosubana around her ankles. There's nowhere for her to step, so she screams up the hill. How in the world did you get up there? The person in the chair slowly turns to look at Ayung, and the face looks familiar. She wonders, have we met before? The person begins to open their mouth, but Ayung suddenly wakes up. When she returns to work the next day and the results of the Mosubana analysis come out, they bring back nothing interesting at all. It's just a regular old vine. A few days later, Yoonjae calls Ayung to let her know they've been asked to go on a road trip to Haewol to see the situation for themselves. Haewol is a restricted zone, so they're not allowed to take a hover car. They'll need to drive on the ground level roads. This gives them a lot of time to talk, so Yoonjae asks why Ayung hadn't applied yet for the upcoming symposium in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. It's the 60th anniversary celebration of the beginning of the reconstruction, and it's something Ah-young has been looking forward to since she began working at the research center. She says she's going to apply soon. The conversation then turns back to the work at hand, which is learning about Musubana. Yoon-jae mentions that the on-site case manager said something strange the other day. They said there are ghosts in Haewol. At night, the cleanup workers at Haewol have been seeing 도깨비불. This phenomenon has many names. In English, it's sometimes called will-o'-the-wisp or a fen fire. It's a spontaneous blue ghost-caused light that's seen at night. In Korean, they blame it on 도깨비, goblin-like magical forest creatures from Korean folklore. We then learn more about Haewol. This was the center of robot production for Korea, and it was also the first place to construct a dome. It became the first place of refuge during the Dust Fall. The city fell apart from a series of technical failures and is now a graveyard for the robots it once created. Mountains of steel and iron are now covered in Musubana, which they come to discover after meeting the local Forest Service representative. When Ah-young asks, the representative explains that the light they've seen coming from the plants has a strange bluish glow. Ah-young is reminded of her dream from a few nights ago. She realizes that she has definitely seen this same thing before, in the garden of a person named Lee Hee-soo. The next section of the book takes us back to Ah-young's early days at the research center. A conversation with her new co-workers about how she ended up working in the dust ecology field leads Ah-young to share that she entered the field because she developed a love for plants while living in a little city called Onyu. Onyu was a silver town, meaning a retirement community, silver town, near Incheon. This love of plants was inspired by an old woman she met there named Lee Hee-soo. The other workers are shocked when they hear the name. Lee Hee-soo? That woman is famous. Ah-young then talks about how she came to meet Lee Hee-soo a month after moving to Onyu. She talks a lot about Lee Hee-soo, her good and bad relationships with all the neighbors. Another thing she talks about is the super overgrown garden that she cares for. It fascinates Ah-young. She also hears from the other kids that Lee Hee-soo's shed is filled with interesting old technology, including a humanoid robot, the likes of which have been banned in the post-Reconstruction society. One day, Ah-young gets lost, taking a different route home from school than she normally took, and she stumbles across the garden. She notices a strange blue glow coming from the plants, and something hurts her knee, causing a stinging sensation and making it swell up. She then sees Lee Hee-soo sitting in a chair in the middle of the garden. Instead of yelling at Ah-young, she responds kindly to her intrusion and gives her some ointment to make the swelling go down. As Ah-young leaves in her mom's car, Lee Hee-soo seems to mouth to her, "Let's keep what you saw here a secret, okay?" Eventually, Ah-young and Lee Hee-soo develop a friendly relationship at the senior center where her mom works. This culminates in Ah-young's mom asking Lee Hee-soo to watch Ah-young one night when she's needed urgently at another care center. She gladly accepts and shows Ah-young around her home. Most notably inside is a hollowed-out humanoid robot, missing its skin and eyeballs. Lee Hee-soo starts the conversation, talking about how these things were put out of production after people modified them to carry weapons and kill others during the Dust Shide, or the Dust Era, Dust Years maybe. She says they were a real threat to humanity. Lots of people died. They ended up repurposing these robots that were used in the home as weapons to protect their dome cities, which have yet to be explained in detail. Then, Lee Hee-soo and Ah-young have a conversation that I feel will be very important later on in this book, so I'm going to talk about it in a little bit more detail than other parts. Lee Hee-soo says,
돔시티는 정말 최악의 인간들을 모아둔 곳이었지. 이렇게 살아남을 바에는 세계가 전부 망해버렸으면 좋겠다고 생각한 적이 많았어.
The dome cities were places where the worst of humanity had all gathered together. There were many times I wished the world had just ended, rather than to have continued like this. She mentions that she resents the other elderly survivors of the dust years. They've left the crimes they committed in the past and moved on like they never happened. Now they're celebrated as heroes by the Reconstruction government. To her, they're all 위선자, hypocrites. Lee-hee-soo feels like Ah-young is uncomfortable with all this negativity, so she says essentially, but hey, we're still here because of people like that, so. She then goes on to say,
세계가 망했으면 좋겠다니. 지금 생각해보면 속 편한 소리지. 정말로 세계가 망한 와중에 살아남은 사람으로서 할 자격이 없는 말이야.
I wish the world would have just ended. It's easy to say now. As someone who survived the end of the world, I don't really feel like I have any right to talk like that anymore. Ah-young responds by telling Lee-hee-soo that she's not uncomfortable. She says she's had similar thoughts, wishing the world would just end while she was sleeping. Ah-young talks about how the kids at school bully her because they know she's leaving next year. None of them like her, none of them help her or play with her. She thinks everyone around her is just a mess, just pretending to be a good person. Ah-young feels embarrassed for sharing all these petty thoughts with an elder, but she then notices that Lee-hee-soo is really 진지하게 listening to her. Lee-hee-soo asks, "Do you still feel that way?" Ah-young, now feeling a bit of confidence, says, "No. I just hate those kids, not everyone. I don't want the world to end anymore, but I do still hate those kids." Lee-hee-soo sits quietly for a moment before responding, saying she also feels the same way. The world didn't need to end, just those people that she hated. And when she started feeling that way, she decided to live a long life, long enough to see them all fail. Ah-young asks her, 성공하셨나요? Have you succeeded yet? Not quite, Lee-hee-soo responds. It doesn't feel that way. They're still living large, enjoying their lives. That being said, living a long life has let me see many good things too, good things that I never would have seen if the world had ended. Ah-young says, I want to feel that way too, that everything ending wouldn't be a good thing. Lee-hee-soo smiles and says,
사람은 12살이든 80살이든 똑같은 생각을 할 수 있구나.
Who'd have thought that at 12 and 80 you can have so much in common? They continue to discuss the dust years and how basically everything outside the dome cities was unable to survive the dust. Ah-young is fascinated that someone whose background was working with machines ended up so tenderly and intimately connected to plants. Now back to the research facility, Ah-young goes on to say that, unfortunately, she's no longer in contact with Lee-hee-soo. One day, Lee-hee-soo just disappeared. Ah-young waited and waited all the way up until the day she packed up and moved to another town. She never heard from her again. The relationship with Lee-hee-soo sparked Ah-young's own love of plants and ecology that led her to her current career. She ended up majoring in dust ecology, studying the changes to the earth that occurred during and after the dust fall. The next short part of the book covers Ah-young posting on Stranger Tales. She's reaching out into the void, asking if anyone has any knowledge or similar experiences of seeing this blue, glowing dust that she thinks has something to do with the Mosebana she saw in Lee-hee-soo's garden all those years ago. Then, Ah-young receives a message, somebody telling her to check out a link. The section ends when she clicks on the link. The next scene brings Ah-young and Yoon-jae to the sample analysis room. Yoon-jae talks about how their findings don't match up with Mosebana samples from the wild. She says that the genome is too 단정해, too 깔끔해, too clean and orderly to be naturally produced. The only reasonable hypothesis is that this plant is man-made. It's engineered to be the way it is. And therefore, this must be an act of terrorism. That being said, if someone were to do all the work it takes to make a plant with artificially sequenced DNA and use it as a biological weapon for a terror attack, why didn't they make it more terrifying, more dangerous? Yoon-jae suggests that because of this confusion, they should get some second opinions from other analysis centers. Ah-young, not listening, starts to put together the memories and experiences she's had with this plant and the blue dust and the mysterious Yi-su like puzzle pieces. She then asks Yoon-jae about going on some personal business while they're on their tour of Addis Ababa for the conference. Addis Ababa was the first city to be rebuilt after the dust years. It had the least environmental damage from the dust, and it became the center for researching the new ecology of the earth. The conference Ah-young and the team are attending, again, is the 60th anniversary of the beginning of the reconstruction. Addis Ababa is described in detail in the chapter, how it's retained a lot of its culture, its vibe, and its population has grown significantly. As they walk around the streets looking for lunch, their language translating earpieces pick up languages like Amharic and English. Ah-young is distracted from all the events of the symposium as it's revealed that the personal business she wanted to attend to in Addis Ababa is meeting with the person who sent her a message on Stranger Tales. It turns out to be an Ethiopian man named Dudan. I looked up his name in English, I looked it up with Ethiopia in the title. I cannot figure out what this name is in any script other than Hangul, so we're going to have to call him Dudan, Rudan, Rudan for now. So, after an initial struggle to find a language that works well with both of their translator earpieces, first Amharic, then his native Oromo, and finally settling on English, he begins to say that he spent his 20s working at a wasteland reconstruction company, and that he was friends with Langano의 마녀들, the witches of Langano, two sisters named Amara and Naomi. He shares that he's tried to get their story out multiple times, but everyone's ignored him. The reporters he got in touch with, and the scientists too. In fact, they're not just ignoring his story, they're actually ignoring Amara's story. Ah-young is the first scientist who's actually come to meet him, so now he's relieved he can finally prove Naomi and Amara's story. He warns her that Naomi, who they're about to go meet, doesn't really like meeting people. He tried to get a meeting with Amara, but she's so frustrated by constantly being ignored that she's now refusing to speak out. Naomi hasn't been answering his messages, but she has been reading them. So they're going to see her without an appointment. When they get to Naomi's place on the outskirts of the city, she ignores them at the door. Dudan continues to pester her, and she finally opens, but won't let them in. After a brief exchange saying why she came, Ah-young convinces her to let them in. They discuss why there are pictures of her and her sister Amara all over the walls, and Ah-young learns that Amara is currently in the hospital. Her memory's been getting weaker and weaker, and at this time of year, when there's lots of fog in Addis Ababa, she's reminded of her fog-related trauma. Amara and Naomi were herbal doctors who used musabana to treat tons of people in Ethiopia. They received awards, praise, local and international recognition for their work. Naomi asks Ah-young if she's aware that recent research has proven musabana has absolutely no pharmacological 양리적 effect. It's actually toxic. Ah-young tries to avoid offending the herbal doctor and says she understands that research papers are works in progress. They're not always correct. But Naomi assures her, no, the paper's right, and I know it has no real effects. After some tense moments, Ah-young reveals that the real reason she came to see Naomi was because she's seen the blue glow and she wants to know the truth. Naomi agrees to tell her story one last time. She pulls out a picture and shows it to Ah-young. On the back, it says October 2059. Naomi tells Ah-young that it's true, musabana does have close ties to the extinction event, but different ones than she might expect. Her face breaks out in a big smile, and the chapter ends. Hey guys, it's a little noisy here next to the road. There's a road over here. But we came out to Gijang today, which is another part of the city of Busan. It's the largest in geographical area. It's full of like rural areas and fishing villages and stuff. But one really cool thing that's out here that we wanted to show you in this book club check-in is an application of a bunch of the vocabulary that you're reading inside the 지구 끝에 온실 book. So I wanted to show you right here on this sign. If we look up here, it says 화훼, 꽃, 화훼, 원예, 자재, 센터. So the important thing here is that it says 화훼 센터. 화훼 is the 한자 word for flowers. You can see it over here too, actually. If we look here, 화훼 종합 판매장. So like what's the right word for 종합? United, combined, all put together. So the first word that we're going to get a visual representation of here, we're going to have to do a little bit of imagining because it's not written directly here. But the vocabulary word was, I'll put it on screen, 해충, 해충. So 해, the 한자 for 해, is like damage or something bad. You'll see it in words like 피해 or 유해 or things like that. It's or 해점, right? And it's like damage, something like that, something bad. And 충 is an insect. That's the 한자 for insects. So 해충, in English, we'd translate this to a pest, a pest. And so we have all of these things like 바로 kill it right away, or 잡아킬, like 잡아서 kill, maybe. 재충국, that's not that exciting. 클린 팡? 클린 팡. Anyway, so there's one vocabulary word, 해충. And down here beneath it is 영양제. Now this, I can't remember, but this yang here in the middle, I've seen it come up in a couple of vocabulary words that while I was standing here, I tried to find what I was thinking of, but it is, this word is fertilizer. And so yang, the yang hanta goes into some words that mean like nutrients and things like that. And so you'll see that in some parts of this when we talk about plants, and they're talking about nutrients or giving it fertilizer or something, they're going to use the word 영양제. The next thing I wanted to show you is the word 잡초. So we're looking at this small palm tree. This is called a kencha yaja in Korean, a kencha palm. And if we go down here into the pot, you see these little guys down here? That is not a kencha. That is a 잡초. 잡초 is a weed, like a little, people don't know what they're called. It's just like a little weed that kind of grows around other plants. So that's a 잡초.
맞아. 켄차 옆에 잡초들이 있네.
Okay, we've come to the next place in our plant tour. This is actually my favorite place to buy plants in the whole city of Busan. All the plants you see in our house, pretty much, more or less, are from here. So this place is called 미래화훼 단지, and this part is the 미래화훼 공원. So 단지, if you don't know, it's kind of like, the best translation in English I can think of is complex. You'll have like an 아파트 단지, something like that, an apartment complex. It's like an area of land where there's only an apartment. There's no like other stuff there. They like kind of take over a whole like lot. So the big thing here though is 화훼. This is one of the words in the story that was kind of hard to understand, I think, for a lot of people. So again, a giant plant market, and 화훼 is the word they use to describe it. Okay, let's head inside. So we are inside now, and this place is kind of wild. I don't really even know how to describe it, but here we go. I don't know if you can see that on the camera. This place is huge. All the way over here even.
와, 오늘 주말이라서 그런지 사람이 많고 엄청 부산스럽네.
So we have the word 부산하다, right, which kind of means busy, lots of people. There's lots of hustle and bustle going on. And that's definitely this place here. I don't even know if the camera is capturing how wild and big this place is, but yeah. All right, we're going to head in deeper into the jungle here.
아나 이거 봐. 여기 지금 싹을 틔우고 있어. 보이지 여기 작은.
새싹.
싹을 틔우고 있어.
Another word you're going to see a lot throughout the book, or at least throughout the first chapter, because we're reading the book together, so I don't know what's going to happen, is 덩굴식물. Nanju says 덩굴식물. We're not sure what's 사투리 and what's not, but it's written as 덩굴식물. Nanju brought a couple over here. She's standing right here. So if we look down here, these types of plants are 덩굴 or 덩쿨 식물. As you can see, they grow out and extend. Sometimes these get called vines in English, but I think there are more things that get included in 덩굴 식물 than just what we traditionally think of as vines. Like for example, so this is a scindapsus, which is a pothos in American English. And as you can see, the leaves come out from the previous leaf and keep growing and growing and growing. And so these are what we can call 덩굴 or 덩쿨 식물, 덩굴 식물.
저 잎 봐봐. 햇빛이 내리쬐고 있어서 반짝반짝 빛나고 있어. 햇빛이 반사돼서.
So guys, I have found a 대형 고무나무. 대형 고무나무. So for those of you in our 한자 패치 beta test, you'll probably be familiar with 대, 클 대, which means big. Here's Nanju. Hey. So here, let's look at a 소형 고무나무 and a 대형 고무나무. 어떨까? So here we have a really pretty 소형 고무나무. This is one type of 고무나무 they're talking about. This is not the most common 고무나무 because it's got these like pretty variegated leaves. The real 고무나무 is over here. Look at this bad boy. That's a thick boy. Look at that. Whoo! So this is a big 고무나무. This is a rubber tree. I believe this is actually the one that produces the latex too that we turn into rubber. Yeah, there's a Nanju hand. Look at that. So when they're talking about 고무나무, they're talking about this kind of plant. Wild, right? And underneath this tree here, we found a bunch kind of 다양한 잡초. 맞지?
나무 옆으로 잡초들이 엄청 많아. 원래는 이 잡초들 다 뽑는데.
해충.
해충.
들어갔다. 해충 있었는데. 여기 있어? 해충. 그냥 개미다.
해충.
So I think that's going to conclude our time here at 미래화훼단지. We're going to head back to the Korean Patch studio, I guess we can call it, and talk about the rest of the book. But I just wanted to come out and show you instead of just, telling you what all these words mean. So I'm going to go find Nanju now. I think she's over there somewhere. Hey, Nanju. 염색했어?
염색했지.
이게 네 머리 아니었어? 봐봐. 염색했네. Okay. Okay, so in this part of the check-in, I want to cover some of the thoughts I have about this book and Kim Cho-yeop's writing style and the world building and stuff she's doing. Just my general review so far of about the first third of the book. What I want to say is that I find Kim Cho-yeop's writing to be captivating. This story is like dripping with tension, and the character reveals are exciting and unexpected, actually. I don't know, maybe I'm just naive or something like that. Maybe I don't read enough books or whatever, but I was really constantly surprised when a character we've met already showed up again, or a concept was reintroduced. I find myself very immersed in this story and the world that Kim Cho-yeop is writing. I find myself very curious about like what's going on with the culture that these people live in, and how did different distinct cultures get maintained across the planet, and what's going on in these dome cities, and blah, 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 blah. She's done a really great job of making me want to know more. And I really hope that continues throughout the rest of the book. It looks like the second part of this book is going to be talking a lot about the past, which should do a lot for the world building and should answer a lot of my questions, hopefully. The thing I'm really looking forward to is how this translates to the screen in reality, because in my mind it looks great and it's going to be really exciting, and clearly if studio executives feel the same way, then we're probably onto something. But I don't know as of right now how well it will go. The language stuff is kind of just solved by technology here, people speaking different languages and having a 통역기. 통역 is interpretation, and ki, of course, is machine. So I just called it a translator, but technically it's interpretation because it's speech. Anyway, they have like machines that let them communicate across language, and a lot of the characters in this story are not Korean. And so making a Korean drama about this, could go very wrong, but it could go very, very right as well. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading the rest of this book. I think that the characters are interesting and the mystery is believable, and nothing's broken my immersion so far. I've really enjoyed everything I've read so far. What do you think? Am I crazy? Am I not thinking about this hard enough? Am I just too much of a fanboy of Kim Cho-yeop? I would love to hear what you're thinking about all of this. I'd love to hear what you think about what I think. This is a book club and we're supposed to be talking about the book. So a third of the way in, where are you at? Let me know. Okay, so that's all for this one today. For me, as well as a lot of other people in the book club, felt like maybe we bit off a little bit more than we could chew in the time department. So since the next section is quite a bit longer, it's like 40 more pages than the last one, I want to give us all a little bit more time. So instead of a week, let's do 10 days. So this check-in is happening on a Thursday, Korea time. So we'll do the next check-in next Saturday. So a week from this Saturday, Korea time. So if you're in North America, that should be like Friday evening or Saturday morning, depending on when I get the video out. By that time, let's get through chapter 2, which is called Prim Village. Prim or Frim, probably Prim Village. Think we can handle that? I think we can handle that. Anyway, since I'm rambling now, I'm going to end the video. Goodbye.